we have got a lot of people registered for this webinar today. So that just goes to show how many people are confused about what their CPD obligations are. So we're just chatting amongst ourselves as everybody streams in. How are you, Nerida? Nice to see you.
I'm well, thank you.
So you're going to explain all of this to us.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the facts.
All right, and Tim's just going to confuse. And Tim's just going to confuse everybody. Is that what he's going to do?
That is my role, Leanne. You know that.
You are skilled. You are a skilled practitioner in that space, my friend. No doubt about it. All righty. So, sorry, Nerida.
I was going
You're
to
the
say,
one that signed my release papers, I suppose.
It is really important that everybody understands the facts. So.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I know just from the Lang & Simmons network, there's been a lot of questions on this. So
every day on customer service gets many panic phone calls about, oh my God, what have I got to do for CPD?
Yeah. Well, we're going to answer all of those questions. And so I think we've still got a few people slowly trickling in, but I think we can probably get started because we are recording, right? So if anybody misses the beginning, they can always just, they can just play the recording.
All right, so I'll start then.
Perfect. And
I'll say, did you know? Did you know that we no longer have points for our CPD? CPD is now about hours. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a little difficult for some of us to get our head around hours.
Yep.
The next thing I think that is really difficult for us, especially for us who've been in the industry for a long time, your CPD is no longer attached to your license renewal. So that means that you can actually renew your license at the appropriate date and still not have done all of your CPD training. But as Tim would say, what are you going to say about that, Tim?
Yeah, that's right, Nerida. I think if people don't use their license renewal date as a trigger to go and do their CPD, then they're probably likely to forget it. And if they forget it, then everybody knows how that ends.
Yes, it's not very nice.
No. So I think that you should really be putting that into your diary, and I think the smart play here, if your office is big enough, or even if it's not, you should be putting into your diary that everybody keeps a trigger in there to go and ensure that you've done your CPD on that day. And in relation to the first point, Nerida, that's true that we now no longer have to do points, and they've gotten rid of that. But when we had to do points, that usually converted to 4 hours worth.
2 hours anyway. Yeah,
that's right. So it's not a quantum leap away from that. But now we have to do, obviously, as you're going to tell everybody, the 6 hours.
And the other thing to remember is that the licensee in charge is responsible for this, right? So if one of the team doesn't do the CPD, it is the licensee's responsibility to make sure that they actually get it done.
And that is part of the supervision guidelines. Exactly. So that's been added into those supervision guidelines. Yeah. So I suppose the other thing we just need to be aware of is that the CPD is actually now, the CPD year is a prescribed period. So it starts on the 23rd of March each year, and it will end on the 22nd of March the following year. So all license holders...
Just to take up, if I might, Nara, just take up Leanne's point, because I think it's a really, really good one, about the obligations of the licensee in charge. And that indicates to me that what the licensee in charge should be doing is also having it in their diary to inquire of the agents that are working in the agency, have they done their CPD, because they would find themselves in trouble. And the manual that we've produced actually has some guidance in there for people to be able to do that. So if you haven't had a look at that manual, I'd encourage you to do that as well, because it is a procedure to assist agents doing this.
Yeah. And so all license holders, regardless of whether you're a Class 1 or a Class 2 license holder, must complete 3 hours of the compulsory CPD that's prescribed by New South Wales Fair Trading annually. And then they have to complete 3 hours of elective CPD. And that can be any training that relates to the type of license that you have. The compulsory CPD, it's really important that when you're choosing to do your compulsory CPD, that it does cover those prescribed topics, that it has to be delivered by an appropriately nominated and approved provider. So REI New South Wales is one of the ones of the approved providers from New South Wales Fair Trading. And the other really important part about it is that it must have a written assessment. And so they are the components of the CPD. So the topics for this year that were prescribed by New South Wales Fair Trading were the real estate reforms, including trust accounting, the rules of conduct, and risk management that's applicable to the type of license that you hold. And so we need to make sure that whatever training we do, you would have those covered in there. Of course, Fair Trading is going to change those compulsory topics for the 21-22 year. So we'll see.
Again, Nerida, a really good point that you make, because just doing 6 hours CPD isn't going to satisfy your CPD obligations. You must do the 3 hours of that, which is the compulsory topics that can only be delivered by people or parties anointed, if you will, or appointed by Fair Trading to deliver them. So it's important that you make that inquiry. Obviously, REINSW has been appointed by Fair Trading to deliver that, but just be careful when you're selecting your CPD to ensure that you are doing the compulsory units, not just six hours.
That's exactly right.
And Nerida, I've just quickly got a question. Does the licensee in charge require an additional 3 hours of business elective that equals 9 hours in total?
Not this year. And I do have another slide about that, but that is not coming in until the 21-22 year.
And if you hold a strata and real estate license, how many electives do you need to do?
Okay. So again, we'll next slide.
Jumping ahead. Okay.
I'll do that in a second, but I just wanted to talk about the elective CPD.
Yep.
So with the elective CPD, there's quite a number of topics that you can do, and they need to be related to the type of business that you're working in. So you can see there that I've got a whole host of different types of topics that that Fair Trading says that we are allowed to do as part of our CPD training. So they may be delivered by any training provider.
What does that mean?
By any training provider.
So does that mean it needs to be a registered training organisation?
No, it doesn't need to be a registered training organisation.
Okay, so who's a training provider?
Anybody who can provide training that complies with Fair Trading's requirements and has a learning outcome.
Okay.
So it needs to be structured. It can't be your sales meeting once a week and you add those up to be elective training. But
so an office can't really manage that on their own. They need to have a trainer
on their own. A franchise can manage that, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
But not an individual office.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. So let's move on. So for this year, because there's been a lot of questions about, but we did roadshow, will that count? Yes, for this year only, you can carry over any elective training that you did before the March 23 changeover. All right. So if you did a roadshow or you've done some other sort of elective training, then that's allowed to be carried over to this year only. And if you were a Class 2 license holder and you wanted to start doing your diploma of property so that you can transition to a Class 1 license, then if you do 1 unit of competence out of that diploma qualification, then that would also class as your elective CPD. So now, as we said, Class 1 license holders for this year only, no additional CPD training is required. But from the 21 to 22 CPD year, you'll definitely have to do 3 hours of CPD that is aligned to business practice and skills. Now, we've had lots of questions about what is business practice and skills. So Fair Trading have given us those particular examples, but it needs to be something that would assist that licensee in charge to manage their business. So anything that's relating to HR, anything that's relating to, you can do a course on how to correctly do your BAS statement.
Yeah, so financial management, managing
Financial
people,
management.
I would imagine. Recruitment and retention.
Financial literacy, that sort of thing. So they're all good skills, and they're skills that people should have anyway if you're running a business. So it's I think it's a really good idea. Nerida, you're saying here that it starts in the 2021 year. That's nearly on us. Is that going to be the 23rd of March as it was?
Yes, it is. As of the 23rd of March, all Class 1 licence holders will be required within that CPD year to have done the additional 3 hours of elective CPD.
So if I'm renewing my licence, let's say on the 25th of March 2021, will I need to have done those? And I'm Class 1. Will I need to?
No, you won't need to do that to renew your Class 1 licence, but you will need to have done it by the 22nd of March, 2021.
Yeah,
okay?
right. But again, you know, as we said earlier, I know we should be using our diaries, and we should. But certainly a double check, I think, would be good when you are renewing your licence. It's a very, very good reminder. Unfortunately, practically on a weekly basis, I get a call from an agent that says I forgot to renew my licence.
Yes,
and
very
unfortunate. I just don't understand how that happens.
Nerida, who has to deliver this training?
It can be any provider.
Any training provider. Okay.
Any training provider. So if you wanted to do an MBA or something like that, then 3 hours of that MBA would be classed as
the training
that you could do.
All right, now I've got another question here. Noting that an RTO is not required to deliver the elective CPD hours, we've had a staff member in our office obtain their certificate 4 in training and assessment. Are they able to provide the structured training of the elective CPD?
That's a very good question. And
they need to be approved by, they don't need to be approved, right?
They don't need to be approved, but what they would need to do is to make sure that they have all of the appropriate documentation to say how that learning outcome was being met for those 3 hours. So they'd have to have a session plan. They'd have to have they'd have to have materials for the learners, like we do in any of our CPD training. I mean, I'm about to launch now for next year our licensee in charge elective CPD, and they will be a combination of webinars, videos, face-to-face training, all on those topics. And for each one of those, I keep a record of what the learning outcome is, how what we're presenting to the learner meets those learning outcomes. So
I think in summary, what we're saying then, Nerida, is firstly you've got to be satisfying the list, one thing on the list that you gave us earlier, and the second thing you have to have is to have evidence of the training that you've received.
That's exactly right. A very structured content, and those documents would need to be kept for 3 years after the delivery.
Okay, I've just got a couple more questions, if that's okay, Nerida. I got a Class 1 licence in February 2020. When do I need to do CPD? Oh, it says CPS training, but I'm guessing it's CPD training.
Sorry, when did they get it?
February 2020, February this year.
Okay, so they will need to do it next year.
Okay, they don't need to do anything before March. They need to do it after March.
Yes, after March for their Class 1. Yes.
Gosh, I've got questions coming in thick and fast. Just to clarify, Class 1 have to do the additional training by 22nd of March 2021 or March 2022?
The 22nd of March 2022.
Yep.
Which is a great number, isn't it, eh? 22?
Yeah, but that's
22.
But that is that's the very, very last day.
Very last day.
So I don't think we should be aiming at that. I think again we should be saying it has to be done before that.
Yeah.
So don't zero in on that number.
If I start a diploma course to go from class 2 to class 1 before March 22, will I be required to do a separate 6 hours of CPD?
No. Okay, so all license holders must do 6 hours. So if you've gone from a class 1 to a class 2, from a class 2 to a class 1, we don't want to go down, do we? It's still only 6 hours of CPD. So you don't have to double up because you've had a class 2 and then you're going to a class 1.
Okay. Sorry, I've just got a question I'm asking someone to clarify. And do the hours carry over if I've done more than the minimum requirement?
There is no carryover. So as of the only carryover this year is elective, but as from March 2021, there is no carryover. So if you do more training than you need to, you can't carry that over. Every year you must do 6 hours of CPD training within that CPD year.
Okay. I renewed my license in October 2020. Do I need to do CPD training before March 23rd, 2021? So they just got their license a couple of months ago.
They renewed it or they gained?
Renewed.
Renewed, then yes, they do have to have CPD training before the 22nd of March, 2021.
I'm looking at the CPD for assistant agents online for $350, which takes 20 hours. Will this cover both the elective and compulsory subjects? If I do this year, will it cover me for all of next year?
Okay. So again, if I could ask you to hold that question for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we'll do.
And we'll talk about assistant agents in their own right in a minute.
Okay.
So let me move on to stock and station. So if for some reason you have a stock and station agent's license, you're out there and you're living in the beautiful fresh air out in the country, then a stock and station agent who only holds a stock and station agent's license only needs to do the compulsory CPD training. A stock and station agent does not need to do any elective CPD. When you're doing your compulsory CPD, you must make sure that the third topic that Fair Trading has prescribed for you actually relates to the rural sector. And they've nominated animal welfare, chain of command, and traceability. So it's all about your stock and how they are, that management of selling and buying stock. So it's really, really important. And if you only have a restricted license where you only sell livestock only and you don't do any other rural practices, then you wouldn't be required to have any CPD. So this has been a negotiation between ALPA and New South Wales Fair Trading for this particular CPD requirement. If you're a strata managing agent, then you would need to do your 6 hours of CPD training. And in your compulsory CPD training, you would need to make sure that, again, you're looking at the risk management section, which is about smoke alarms, electrical matters, external wall cladding. So that training that you're doing must include those topics.
And so to go back to my strata question, Nerida, if you've got both a strata and a real estate license, do you have to do the compulsory for both?
No. So if you hold both a stock and station and a real estate, or a strata and a real estate license, you only have to do 6 hours, 3 compulsory, 3 elective. You don't have to double up.
Yeah.
All right. So any license holder, regardless of how many classes or categories of license, only have to do the 6 hours of training, the 3 hours of compulsory and the 3 hours of elective. So that's a bit of a relief for people as well.
Totally.
Okay. Now let's go to certificate of registration holders. So if you hold a certificate of registration for our assistant agents, then you need to do 3 units of competency from the Certificate 4 in Real Estate Practice qualification. Now, going back to that question of if I do the CPD for assistant agents that we have on our website that we've got going, yes, that would give you the requirements for your CPD training for the year. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
That sounds awesome.
The other thing, while we're talking about assistant agents, is the limitation on what an assistant agent can do. And I don't know that that's well known out in the market either. So if you have a certificate and therefore you're rebadged as an assistant agent, it is worthwhile making inquiry of Nerida and her team to find out whether or not you can have that assistant agent status improved to a Class 2 license with the use of some additional training, obviously, and recognise prior learning. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and he's been in the industry for 30 odd years, and he's got a certificate. So therefore, he's become an assistant agent. And I said to him, look, I think you would qualify to be able to go through, without doing a heck of a lot more study, through the RPL system and to get your Class 1 license. Biggest problem that the assistant agent has is that assistant agent can't sign their agency agreements and these sort, and does require a lot more supervision. So they do soak up a lot of time in the office unnecessarily if it can be avoided. Sorry, Nerida.
And the 3 units, Nerida, for assistant agents need to be completed by 23rd of March.
Yes, yes. And so it's important again too that when you actually do those units of competence that you get the appropriate recognition for it. So it must ensure that you get a statement of attainment for those 3 units of competence. You know, you might go and do a course that says it's about sales, but unless you can show that you have 3 units of competence on that transcript, then it's just like doing elective CPD and it's not counted. So we need to be really careful about the provider that we choose for that 3 units of competence. And I've noticed on a lot of different training websites that, you know, they're talking about CPD for assistant agents and then they're just talking about sales or property management, but they're not talking about the individual units of competence that that person is going to undertake. So of course, if you're doing a unit of competence, there's going to be assessments required. So if you enroll with somebody who only gives you some learning material to look at and they don't require you to do an assessment, then that wouldn't be classed as gaining your 3 units of competence. So it's very important that you're choosing your provider properly. So of course,
that is the subtle difference, I suppose, between education and training, isn't it? You if you do that and get that certificate of competence, you've actually had an education which will ultimately lead to qualification there with your license. But if you're simply doing training, then that doesn't take you on that journey.
That's exactly right.
Can I go through a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Nerida? Yeah. Does a receptionist admin need to have a certificate or a license?
Fair Trading has given us some examples of the type of people who don't need to have any sort of certification. So if you're doing purely admin, if you're not out there introducing property to the public, if you're just working, I shouldn't say just, if you're working in marketing or those types of areas, then no, you do not need a certificate of registration.
Or if you're an accountant, a bookkeeper, that kind of,
no, you don't need to have any certification.
Yeah,
however,
there is a list of these, Leanne, which will be updated in the supervision guidelines manual, which we produced again. We've been working with REIF on this, and it always has been, a very difficult area to pin fair trading down on. But it obviously has become very critical now, because when you could get your certificate of registration, I know a lot of agents said, look, I don't know what's in and what's out, so we'll get the receptionist for that one.
Yeah.
And that way we covered it off. But clearly now, it is moving to a far higher education, which we're grateful for. So we have been able to get a list of things that the non-agent, if you will, within the office doesn't have to do, and we'll be publishing that shortly in the guidelines.
So this goes towards answering this question as well from Kim. We have a number of our admin team, particularly the receptionists, who have certificates and they don't want to transition to a license. We've been advised to check the position descriptions that these staff are, so that they're not doing any tasks requiring a certificate, and surrender the certificates before March 23. What's your advice?
Yeah, again, we'll put that that information out through the guidelines. But if people don't have our supervision guidelines manual, they can contact us and through our helpline, and we'll be able to give them that list there as well.
Okay.
And I think, Leanne,
it should be available over the next week or so, Leanne.
Great, fantastic. Sorry, Nerida.
It's very important that those people who currently hold a certificate of registration, who don't wish to continue towards a license, that they do surrender them before the 22nd of March 2021, because otherwise the licensee in charge will not be complying with their supervision guidelines, and those people will not have done their CPDs. So whilst it may not have a huge effect on the certificate holder, it will definitely have a huge effect on the licensee in charge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, that's
a good point. That's a really good point, and it highlights the necessity for the licensee in charge to demonstrate supervision over these people. So,
so how should our property managers who only have a certificate of registration be training? Should they be moving towards a license qualification?
Yes, they must. Everybody who holds a certificate of registration must be progressing towards a license within that 4-year period. It's a must.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what area of practice you're in, be it property management or sales or commercial or whatever it is. If you have a certificate and you wish to retain working in the industry, then you must go and be on the journey to get your license. But back to the earlier question in relation to the receptionist, if that person doesn't want to continue as operating in agency practice and the task that they're doing within the office doesn't require it, then they can get out. So it's sort of a very binary thing. You're either in and you're in 100%, or you're out and you're out 100%.
100%, that's right.
Now, who provides proof of the hours, the agent or the trainer?
Okay, so this is a really important question, and each individual person is responsible for having proof of the training that they've done. So when you go to a training provider, they should be providing you with some sort of proof that you have done your compulsory or your elective CPD. Now, it could be done by having a logbook, but again, it's very subjective. And if you get an audit from Fair Trading, the chances are, if you've just got some scribble in a logbook, they're going to ask more questions. So
I've just realised I've done my CPD and I've got no idea what I've done with the with the notification from your team, Nerida.
That's okay.
So what happens in that?
Okay, so if you do your CPD with REI New South Wales, we keep a record of all of the CPD that you do, and all you need to do is just contact us and we just send you through the information.
Beautiful.
Because we do everything through our portal, the training portal, you can actually go in there and get it yourself as well, because all of your records are kept for 30 years on our portal. It's not like in real estate where we only have to keep things for 3 years.
Okay.
So I'm just going to move on to my next slide, because this might be some of the questions that will come shortly. So a lot of people have said to me, goodness me, I've only just got my certificate of registration. Let's say I got it on the 1st of November. Do I have to do CPD before? Do I have to do those 3 units of competence before the 22nd of March 2021? So we asked the question of Fair Trading, what was going to happen in these instances, because it's very unfair, to complete your assistant agent course, and then automatically have to have 3 units of competence out of the licensing course. So they've given us some exemptions. Okay, so I'm just going to read it as it has come from New South Wales Fair Trading. If a license or a certificate of registration was granted within 90 days of the end of the CPD period, the license or certificate of holder is not required to do their CPD for that period. If the certificate of registration was granted between 3 and 9 months before the end of the CPD period, then they only need to do 1 unit of competence towards their certificate for in property. Now, everybody's going to say, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do now, because you've got to remember when you did it and how much time you've been in between there. So best case there is to just give the training department a ring, and we'll be able to put you on the right track for that. Yeah. But we just need to know that there are some exemptions to having the full 6 hours of CPD training.
Yeah.
And it's only basically for new people. So it's a new person who's got their assistant agent qualification, or it's a person who has just got their Class 2 license.
Yeah, that seems like good advice, now, to give the training department a call, because I can envisage here that we can't give an answer that covers the field.
No, that's exactly right. So here are the records that you need to keep. If you're a Class 1 or 2 license holder, you have to keep records of all the CPD that you've done during that year, and you've got to keep those records for a period of 3 years. So you can't just do 1 year, say, oh yeah, I got my bit of paper, put it in the special filing and never be able to find it again. Because Fair Trading will ask for records for the previous 3 years. So for compulsory CPD, you would need to have a proof of attendance or a proof of completion from one of the approved providers for CPD training. For your elective CPD, you would need to have some sort of proof that you have attended and participated in the elective training. And for the certificate of registration holders, they must have a statement of attainment that lists which units of competence they have completed, and certificate holders have to hold those records for 4 years. So just some more years to remember.
So while we're on the talking about records, Nerida, one of the enhancements that we're going to be making to our supervision guidelines manual will be the ability for people to record their CPD and other training that they have, other obligations if you're a certificate of registration holder and on your journey through. We will have the ability within our system for you to use that to record all of your people. And if you do your training through us, we'll automatically put that information into the system for you.
Yeah, I've got that question actually. Tim, can REINSW develop some sort of CPD record keeping system?
Yeah, yeah. So yes, we will. We'll have it built into the manual. And as I've said before about the manual, nothing stays still these days. And so as the world changes, we will change the manual around it and provide the ability for people to record all of that in there. And if all of the clever people out there with IT can work with me, what we'll also be doing is sending reminders out that you need to be doing your CPD. If we've got the details in the system, that's not to say that you can abandon your obligations. This is simply something where we can help you to try and remember.
So I've still got 20 questions.
Yep, let's go.
Are we ready? Okay. So here we go. Can someone with no qualifications process tenant applications, conduct ingoing inspections of properties, etc.?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't believe so either.
I think that
no, they can't do inspections. No, they certainly can't do inspections.
No.
What about just processing the applications?
Yeah. I think that both of those things require somebody to have qualification. You are doing real estate services work. in both of
that's
those
what I
things.
would say.
Yeah.
Is the licensee in charge obligated to keep the CPD statements on hand?
I believe so. Yes, the licensee in charge will need to demonstrate it as part of their supervision of their people that they've satisfied themselves that their people have done their CPD. So it's like the example Nerida gave a little earlier. Somebody who says, oh, I'm going to abandon my career in real estate because I'm the receptionist, and they don't do anything about it, don't surrender their license, then the licensee in charge would be in trouble for not ensuring that that person has done their CPD. So, so yes, is the answer to that question. As part of the licensee in charge
to be able to put their hands on the information. Yeah. Okay. So in my case, I wouldn't need to do CPD because I obtained my Class 2 license in September of this year.
And is that 90 days before the 22nd of March?
No, it's not.
So then they're fine. So we just have to look at that 90 days.
Yeah, and that's why we said I think people should ring the training department, because it's going to be a different answer for everybody.
Yeah, it's really complicated. Here's one. What's the CPD period?
The CPD period is from the 23rd of March to the 22nd of March each year.
Are we going to provide a recording of these answers?
I believe we are.
Yep.
Yes. So that will go out via email in the link in the EDM, I would imagine, in the next few days. Tim, would that be right?
Yeah, that's right, or sooner. Yeah.
And it'll be available on Webinars on Demand.
Does the roadshow training equate to 6 hours of CPD and therefore cover the year?
No, it will not. Unfortunately, roadshow will be a great venue for your elective CPD, but it won't be the venue for your compulsory CPD. However, as we're now about planning for next year's roadshow, we will be making sure that you have your elective and your compulsory CPD available in that roadshow period. So we're coming up with a really good plan for that.
Yeah, fantastic. But this year's roadshow, will it cover all of the electives?
This year's roadshow will cover all of the elective component.
Okay, cool.
But not the compulsory.
Okay, cool. Certificate holders, what year do they need to surrender their certificates?
This year. They need to do it before the 22nd of March 2021.
Because they're not prepared to do the 3.
That's right. Because they haven't. Because if they haven't done those 3 units of competence, then the licensee in charge has not complied with Section 22 under supervision guidelines.
Understand. Will the compulsory units change each year? Yes,
the compulsory units will change every year. So we are yet to be advised about what the compulsory units will be for next year, but there is consultation about that happening now.
Okay. Okay, I got a Class 1 license in February 2020. Which year do I need to do the CPD training? Please specify the start and end date of the year.
Okay, so you have a Class 1 license. You would have to have done 3 hours of compulsory and 3 hours of elective by the 22nd of March, 2021.
Yeah.
And you will only need to do the additional 3 hours of CPD training after the 23rd of March, 2021.
Okay.
My God, that's very, very confusing.
I know, it's really super confusing. If you're a certificate holder and decide not to do CPD, however, if you are a certificate holder and decide not to do CPD this year, but do not work in the industry for a few years, will you still have to surrender your certificate? Yes, you do, because it's about the licensee in charge, right?
Yes, and even if you're not working in the industry and you hold a certificate of registration, you have to be working towards getting that license. So you have to do it.
Do you guys agree that the nanny state is still out of control?
I'm saying nothing.
Did you say no training required for Class 1 holder this year?
No, I didn't say no training at all. I said no extra 3 hours of business skills training for Class 1 license holders.
Yeah. So that kicks in on the 23rd of March 2021. So you would have had to have done that in the 12 months till 22 March 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the rule of thumb for everyone, Leanne and Tim, is that everybody has to have done some sort of training. You can't think that you're exempt just because you've got this or you've got that. Everybody needs to have done training.
Yeah. I've just got lots of questions here around dates. Do you want people just to ring you, or do you want me to go through all of these one by one?
No, just ask them. You can see here that we've got our training at, to ring customer service or to email training@reinsw.com.au.
Yeah, okay. Very good idea. Let me just go through and see if there's anything. I recently completed a dual diploma in training. Would these go towards electives?
Not necessarily. You would have to be able to align it to those elective topics that Fair Trading have.
I agree with Nerida on that one.
Because that's not a real estate specific course,
correct.
right? Or
it has to be specific to the role that they do in real estate.
Yeah. So they've done training in education rather than in real estate.
That's exactly right.
I doubt that it would qualify.
Nerida, one of my staff did her license course with you earlier this year, but she hasn't applied for her license yet. How long does she get before she applies for her license?
She has 4 years.
4 years. There we go. That's lots of time. Okay. As a certificate holder, can I just do 6 hours of CPD this year? Or must I do the 3 units from the certificate 4?
You must do the 3 units from certificate 4.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, is that 90 days relevant there, Nerida?
I don't know when that person has.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'd say whoever's asked that question, again, your circumstances will give a different answer. So again, ring the training department so you get a specific answer to you.
Oh boy. Okay. What tasks could an admin assistant carry out while obtaining their certificate of registration?
Well, that's what we spoke about earlier. If you are on the journey to get your certificate, or it's
not a certificate of registration anymore.
No, it's not. Yeah. So if you are on the journey to becoming an assistant agent, so doing the necessary, or you have no intention of getting one and you're in the office, then both of those people are the same, and they can only do the list of tasks we will provide them that we spoke about earlier. So acting as the bookkeeper and these sorts of things in the office, or the marketing person, etc. They'll be able to do that.
You would do as in a clerical position.
Yeah. Some services to the agent you wouldn't need it, but doing agency work, you would.
Sorry, I'm just answering some of these as we go. Now, I've got somebody who's a welfare organisation and have in the past provided training for agents so they can get their CPD points. The subjects were things like communication, how to manage clients with complex needs, that kind of thing. So that would still work they could still do that in the electives, right?
In the elective space, yes, they can.
Yeah, okay.
But again, be mindful that we have to be able to demonstrate that even though it's elective, there are specific requirements in there which Nerida had up on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, okay. It has to have a learning outcome.
Yeah, they have to have that learning outcome within those categories. So, so you need to be careful about that and map it.
Now, the other thing that I hadn't really thought of that we need to be careful of is that some receptionists actually process applications, tenancy applications.
Well, I think we need to have a look at what processing means. So if it's the case of compiling the various pieces of information, doing some of the inquiries and this sort of thing, searching the tenancy base by way of some example, and then getting those all of those documents together and putting them on the desk of the property manager for a decision, then I think that would be okay. But if they are making a decision, if the definition of processing the tenancy application, then they would need to have the appropriate license.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So they can check references and then make phone calls to employers and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
I mean, that's I mean, we're getting really specific. We only, the problem that we've got is that Fair Trading have not given us clarity to this level of detail, have they, Tim?
No, they haven't. We've got some specific things from them, but not on everything, and they're reluctant to give it to us because when they turn up on the day, they want the flexibility to be able to say no.
Oh, you're such a cynical man.
Yes, it comes with the trade, but
I'm just making a note of it. I will shoot a note off to Fair Trading today, just to clarify that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Don't challenge me. You know what will happen if you do that.
So I've just put up some of our online elective classes that we're running, so that you can just get an idea of the types of topics that would fit in within that elective framework.
Can we add Gladys to this Zoom?
We are a very broad church, Leanne, and yes, we can. We welcome everybody.
Can the uncertified receptionist give out details of an open for inspection or the details of a property if someone calls?
Yeah, look, I think that's fine. They're not making any decisions there. If they were to say that 10 Smith Street is open at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for an open, that's information that is in the public domain. It would obviously be on the portals. It would be in the front window. It would be in the newspapers or wherever it's done. That's fine. But if somebody comes in and says, "I'd like to make an offer of 10 Smith Street, and here's my offer," the receptionist should not do anything further other than connect them with the agent.
Yeah, okay. I got a Class 1 license in February 2020. Please confirm that I need to do the 3 hours of compulsory and 3 hours of elective before March 2021.
Yes.
Yep.
I like those questions.
They're easy, right? I have attained a certificate of registration assistant agent. It's valid until March 2024. Do I need to do CPD?
Your CPD component is actually getting your license. So you must do 3 units of competence out of the licensing course each year.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I know we've gone there, but let's underline it. Yeah. You don't do CPD as a certificate holder on your way to the license. You do education, not training, and the education will give you that 3 units of competence, and you will get a certificate of attainment. So before you do any training in that area, any education in that area, you need to be satisfying yourself that that's what you're going to walk away with.
Yeah. Okay. How does a certificate of registration holder surrender their license or their certificate?
That's a good question.
I don't. Yeah, the reason I froze as well, I've never had that one in all the years I've had there. But I would think it would be a letter to Fair Trading, attaching a copy of it, telling them that just saying to Fair Trading that they wish to cancel their license, and it should be as simple as that. Yeah. I should imagine handing it back in is a lot easier than getting it. But certainly, if they send it into Fair Trading and do that,
I think. Tim,
I'll make an inquiry of that one, Lynn, because I've never had that question. I've had thousands of questions about how I get it. never had a question about how I get rid of it. So I'll make an inquiry about that, and we'll put it up there at the end of the of the webinar when this goes out.
How much does it cost to do the elective courses online, Nerida?
Oh, we have various prices. They range from $55 for 1 hour of online to whatever. So it's best to just have a look on the website and have a look at all of our different offerings.
Okay. Now I've got an RPL question. I've got a certificate of registration and I am a property manager who has done sales, admin, reception and trust accounting. I've been advised that I can do RPL for my license. Do I need to do 3 units if I can RPL those units?
You can RPL those units. So RPL is basically an assessment process. And so you would be doing your 3 units of competence and getting a statement of attainment for it. So yes, they can be done via RPL.
Oh, look, somebody's put the form up to remove a certificate holder.
Thank you.
Nice job, Anonymous. Well done, thank you. Can an admin person who is unlicensed prepare and conduct settlement transactions?
Sorry, say again, I missed that one.
Can they do settlement transactions if they're not licensed? I assume that means processing the money.
Yeah, and again, we're getting into specifics depending on exactly what they're doing. But if it is clerical in that role, then that's okay. But if it requires making real estate services decisions, then it makes me nervous. But if somebody was to be doing the the preparation work and the agent then reviewed it and signed it off, I'd be fine. It's a bit like saying signage that's going to be prepared or marketing material is going to go out onto the website or what have you. You can't hand that over to somebody that has skills in that space as far as creative skills.
Yeah.
But when that person has completed their work in that space, they hand it to the agent. The agent would need to check that all of the material that is being provided is accurate.
Yeah.
And then they could say, yeah, look, put it out there. And I think the same thing applies in that space.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here about financial. So pressing the button on financial, like dispersing funds from the software system, processing the balance of deposits, transactions from bank accounts. I've got a few questions on that.
Okay.
Do they need to be, what's the licensing requirement?
There's a couple of answers there. Putting money into the trust account, anybody can do it. We're not worried about that. Taking money out of the trust account is where the restrictions apply. Now, if you are running an older system, so in other words, you're using checks, then only the licensee in charge that is nominated at Fair Trading, registered at Fair Trading as being responsible for that particular trust account can sign the checks. All right. However, if we go into the world of just excuse me,
electronic.
Yeah, in the electronic world, if we go into that area, then what can happen is that we can authorize the transaction. So by authorizing the transaction, somebody else can prepare the batch, I think they're called, and that person can be, as I understand it, anybody. So you might be your bookkeeper or the like. That person could prepare the batch and send it to the licensee in charge, that person again, who is nominated at Fair Trading for responsibility of that trust account, and the licensee in charge then, quote unquote, approve the batch, and then the person who has prepared it can then process it. So the big word there is authorised. So they need to authorise the that particular batch. Now, Leanne and I had to squeeze Fair Trading on this one enormously, but they finally put it in writing, and it was put out in Property Matters. We will put a link on this particular session so that you can have a look at that.
Yeah, okay.
So there is a bit of confusion in that area.
Does the licensee in charge have to confirm that all previous employees that have left the industry have cancelled their license? Isn't it enough if they've just let their renewal lapse?
I think if they are working in your business and they were a licensed person or a certificate person in your business, then I would be checking the register. That's the reason the register's there, so inquiries can be made. I would be checking that to make sure that they are no longer holding any real estate recognition certificate or license. Because if they are and they're in your business and they're working in your business, then you are responsible for them. So I'd make that inquiry.
Yeah. Now we've got a certificate holder who's enrolled to complete their certificate 4 and they want to finish it within 6 months rather than over the 4 years. Therefore, they'll have a Class 2 licence. Do they then have to do further CPD training starting the following year?
So one of the requirements is experience. So if you do your certificate 4 very, very quickly, that's great, and you're going to make everybody in the office happy because you're not going to have to annoy them to sign your agency agreements and like. But you also have to have 12 months experience before you can get your license.
Yeah, but do they have to do CPD training?
Yes. So look, the long and the short of it is that once you gain that license, that's when your CPD requirements come in. So the minute that you apply for a license, then you are needing to do your 6 hours of CPD training. So you might only hold your certificate of registration for 6 months, and then you become a Class 2 license holder. Well, no, that's not true. 12 months. It could only be 12 months. If you hold your certificate of registration for 12 months, you've done your training, you apply for your Class 2 license, then you must do your CPD training. If you complete your qualification, but don't apply for your license, then you don't have to do your CPD training because that qualification counts.
Yeah, okay. Now I know we've answered these, but these have come in just in the last couple of minutes. So I'm just going to ask them again as we've got just a couple of minutes to go. I've got a certificate of registration assistant agent. Do I have to do 3 units of competency by March 23, 2021? I've attained the certificate 27th of July.
Yes, you would. That's a definite yes.
Yep. I achieved a Class 2 licence November 2020. When are the CPD hours required? So that's only last month.
Last month, then there would be no CPD hours required.
Okay.
Because that's within the 90 days.
Yep. So only the approved licensee on that trust account can sign any trust checks, even if the bank has others down as co-signers.
Yeah, so if the system within the office requires 2 signatures, that's great. But one of those signatures would need to be the licensee in charge that is nominated at fair trading and having responsibility. I think it's a good system having 2 people signing, but it's not a requirement for under the supervision guidelines. But as long as one of those signatures is the nominated person.
I have a license, but I've never worked because I'm a student. If I can't get the 12 months work experience, what happens to my license?
So if you currently hold a license, then your license remains, but you must do your CPD obligations. So if you decided to take time out for whatever reason, let's say you're on maternity leave or something like that, your license will remain. You don't have to surrender your license, but you do have to do your CPD training.
You still have to do your CPD, and you have to get your experience when you can get your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that person held their license prior to the 23rd of this year.
Yeah, it didn't say, yeah.
And if that was the case, they've already got a license, so they don't need the 12 months.
Okay, I completed my license prior to the 31st of March 2020. I received my license in February 2020, so those dates don't add up. With the advice that if I complete my course prior to the cut-off date, I'd receive a Class 1 license. After inquiring, I was advised that since things have changed, I now actually hold a Class 2 license. Is this correct? We've had a few people that have missed the deadlines, haven't we, Tim?
Yeah. If you've got a license, but you are not the licensee in charge, and I know that wasn't a defined term until we went into the last round of reforms. But if you weren't the licensee in charge and you wanted to get a Class 1 license, then it was easier leading into the 23rd and for a few months after that. But now Fair Trading have tightened all of that up, and you now need to demonstrate experience and the rest of it if you want to get a Class 1 license. I can also say to you that that it is a very, very difficult journey now. I've had, and so have you, Leanne. I've had people contacting me constantly on it. And
super experienced people too. So yeah, it's been really hard.
Yeah.
You've upgraded a license. You've upgraded to a Class 2 license, and it was granted in February. Will the 90-day exemption apply every year?
No, only for the first year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Alrighty. There's still lots around dates and all of this.
So anything with dates, please just email, and then we will get back to you with advice on that.
Actually, here's a different one. I obtained my assistant agent accreditation in May, started in the industry in July. I've now finished my Class 2 license course. Do I need 12 months work experience before I can sign an agency agreement?
So you cannot sign an agency agreement unless you hold a Class 2 or a Class 1 license. So until such time as you gain the license, you can't sign an agency agreement.
Yeah, so, and you can't get that Class 2 license without how much experience?
12 months experience.
Yeah, so the answer is no, you can't sign an agency agreement.
Yeah,
that's good.
Another lens to look through, Leanne, is if you are an assistant agent, if that's what Fair Trading is calling you, then the answer is no, you can't sign agency agreements.
Okay, and Nerida, I've got a note here. Good job. Nerida is a hero and should be knighted. So Milton, thank you very much for that.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Nerida is a hero and she should be knighted.
Thank you.
So I am very conscious of time. We have gone a few minutes over. There are still some questions. So if we have not answered your questions about the dates, please just email Nerida and her team. And they will be able to answer them specifically for you.
And just to finish up, I've got up on the screen the compulsory training dates that we have coming up to the end of the first CPD year. So if you haven't done it, please have a look at those dates and get in there and do it. Yeah. We've got all sorts of varieties of ways for you to do it.
Yep.
Classroom day, classroom evening, Zoom day, Zoom evening. Just get on and get it done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Get on and get it done. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Get well, Tim. Get out of that joint.
Yeah. I'm on it. I'm working on it.
All right. See you later.